My name is Ethan, and I'm posting this because I genuinely don't know what happened to me 2 years ago. I've never told this story publicly. The only people who know about it are my parents, two police officers, and my old manager. Even now, writing this makes me uncomfortable. Back when I was 22, I worked the night shift at a small convenience store just outside my town. It wasn't a gas station, but it looked like one. The building sat alone on a quiet road surrounded by woods. During the day, it was busy enough. At night, though, it felt isolated. My shift started at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. Most nights were boring. I would stock shelves, clean the coffee machines, and occasionally help a customer. The store had cameras everywhere. One facing the entrance, one covering the aisles, one in the storage room, and another behind the register. My manager always said the cameras were more reliable than the security system. I wish that had been true. The first strange thing happened on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were usually dead. Around 2:13 a.m., I was restocking drinks in the back cooler when I heard a crackling sound over the store intercom. At first I ignored it. The intercom was old. Sometimes it made weird noises, but then I heard something else. A voice. Very quiet, almost like a whisper. Ethan. I froze. I remember standing there holding a box of soda, convinced I had imagined it. Then I heard it again. Ethan. This time I dropped the box. The voice wasn't loud. It sounded distant, like someone speaking directly into a microphone from far away. I immediately walked to the front counter. The store was empty. No customers, no cars outside, nothing. I checked every aisle. Nobody. Then I checked the intercom controls. Everything was turned off. I told myself it was a malfunction, nothing more. For the rest of the night, everything seemed normal. Then at exactly 4:01 a.m., it happened again. The intercom crackled, and a voice said, "Behind you." I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Nobody was there. But one thing caught my attention. The storage room door, it was open. I always kept it closed, always. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the room. The storage room wasn't huge, just shelves, boxes, and a small employee bathroom. The light inside flickered. I checked every corner. Nobody. But near the back wall, I noticed something strange. One of the boxes had been moved. Not knocked over. Moved. I knew because earlier that night I had stacked them myself, and now one sat several feet away. I stared at it for a moment, then I laughed. I actually laughed, because I was trying so hard to convince myself there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe I had moved it, maybe I forgot, maybe I was tired. So I went back to work. At 5:30 a.m., the sun started coming up. Customers arrived. The strange feeling disappeared. By the end of my shift, I had almost forgotten everything. Until the next night. Around 1:47 a.m., a man entered the store. I had never seen him before. He looked about 60 years old, thin, gray hair, wearing a dark jacket. He didn't grab anything, didn't browse, didn't even look around. He walked directly to the counter, then he asked me a question. "How long have you been hearing it?" The moment he said that, my heart dropped. I asked what he meant. The man glanced toward the ceiling speakers, then back at me. "You're hearing it too." I felt my stomach tighten. I asked him who he was. Instead of answering, he shook his head. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Don't answer if it talks to you." I laughed nervously. The guy looked serious, completely serious. Then he turned around and left, Just like that. No explanation, no warning, nothing. I watched him walk to the parking lot. Then I watched him disappear into the darkness beyond the road. I never saw him again. But that wasn't the part that scared me. The part that scared me happened 20 minutes later. Because at exactly 2:13 a.m., the intercom turned on again. And this time the voice wasn't whispering. It sounded clear, close, almost human, and it said, "He's right, Ethan." Then everything went silent. For a few seconds I couldn't move. The store felt completely silent. Not normal silence. The kind of silence where it feels like the entire world is holding its breath. The voice had never responded before. Until now, I could still convince myself it was some kind of malfunction, a crossed signal, a prank, someone outside with a radio. But hearing it answer directly, hearing it mention the old man, that was different. I immediately walked behind the counter and opened the camera system. There were 4 camera feeds. Front entrance, main aisles, storage room, parking lot. Everything looked normal. No customers, no movement, no sign of anyone hiding inside. I spent nearly 10 minutes staring at the screens. Nothing happened.
Eventually, I convinced myself to calm down. I returned to stocking shelves. Around 3 a.m., a light rain started outside. The parking lot reflected the glow from the streetlights. I remember looking out the window and thinking how empty everything felt. Then something moved. At first, I thought it was an animal, a deer maybe. But when I looked closer, my stomach dropped. Someone was standing at the edge of the woods, just beyond the parking lot, watching the store. The figure didn't move, didn't wave, didn't walk closer, just stood there. The distance made it impossible to see their face. I immediately checked the parking lot camera. The spot where the figure stood was visible, but there was nobody there. The woods were empty. I looked outside again. The figure was still standing there. I looked back at the monitor. Nothing. The spot was empty. My heart started pounding. Outside, the figure, monitor, nothing. Outside, the figure, monitor, nothing. I don't know how long I stood there doing that. Maybe 30 seconds. Maybe a minute. Then the figure took one step forward. I stumbled backward. The movement was slow, unnatural, almost mechanical. Another step, then another. And suddenly, every light inside the store went out. Everything. The aisles, the signs, the refrigerators, the register. Darkness swallowed the building. For a moment, the only light came from the rain-covered windows. Then the emergency lights activated. A dim red glow filled the store. I remember hearing my own breathing. Nothing else. No customers, no traffic, no music, just me. And somewhere outside, that thing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam shook in my hand. The backup generator usually kicked in within seconds. This time it didn't. I walked to the front door. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Fear makes people do stupid things. I aimed my flashlight through the glass. The parking lot was empty. The woods were dark. The figure was gone. I felt a wave of relief. Then I noticed something. Water. Fresh rainwater. On the floor. Inside the store. A trail of wet footprints, leading away from the entrance. I stared at them. The front door was still locked. Nobody had entered. Yet the footprints were there, starting several feet inside the building. as if someone had appeared out of nowhere. The trail led down aisle 3, toward the back of the store, toward the storage room. Every instinct told me not to follow. Every instinct told me to wait for the police. But I didn't. I followed the footprints, step by step. The red emergency lights made everything look wrong. The shelves cast long shadows. The store seemed larger somehow, empty, dead. The footprints continued all the way to the storage room door, then stopped. Not faded, stopped, as if whoever made them had vanished. The storage room stood open. I pointed my flashlight inside. Nothing moved. No sound. No sign of anyone. Then I heard a noise behind me, a soft click. I turned. The storage room door slammed shut. The impact echoed through the building. My flashlight slipped from my hand. It hit the floor and rolled away. For one terrifying second, I was standing in complete darkness. Then the intercom crackled. The voice returned. Closer than ever, almost whispering directly into my ear. Ethan. I couldn't breathe. Ethan. The speakers hissed. Ethan. Then a pause. A long pause. And finally, look at camera 4. The lights suddenly came back on. Every single one. The refrigerators hummed. The music resumed. Everything looked normal again, as if nothing had happened. My legs felt weak, but somehow I forced myself back to the counter. The camera monitor was still running. Camera 1, entrance, empty. Camera 2, aisles, empty. Camera 3, storage room, empty. Then I opened camera 4, the parking lot. At first I didn't notice anything. Then I zoomed in, and my blood ran cold. Standing directly behind me, close enough to touch me, was a tall figure wearing what looked like a dark hood. The timestamp showed it had been standing there for almost 6 minutes. 6 minutes. While I was checking cameras, while I was walking through the aisles, while I was following the footprints, the figure had been directly behind me the entire time. But there was one detail that terrified me more than anything else. The camera showed me the shelves, the counter, the hooded figure. But camera 4 was outside, mounted in the parking lot, facing the front windows. There was absolutely no possible way it should have been able to see inside the store. I stared at the monitor for what felt like an eternity. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. Camera 4 was outside. There was no possible angle that should have allowed it to see me standing inside the store. Yet there I was.
Clear as day. And behind me stood the hooded figure, perfectly still, watching. I turned around so fast that I nearly knocked over the chair. Nothing. The space behind me was empty. I looked back at the monitor. The figure was still there, still standing, still watching. I felt sick. The image wasn't delayed. The clock in the corner was moving in real time. Whatever was on that screen was happening now. I reached for the store phone and called my manager. No answer. It was nearly 4 a.m. He was asleep. I called again, straight to voicemail. Then I called the police. I told them someone was stalking me outside the store. I didn't mention the cameras. I didn't mention the voice. I knew how crazy it sounded. The dispatcher said an officer would be there within 15 minutes. 15 minutes? It felt like 15 hours. I kept my eyes locked on the monitor. The figure never moved, not once. Then suddenly the screen flickered for less than a second. When the image returned, the figure was gone. I checked every camera. Nothing. The store was empty. The parking lot was empty. The woods were empty. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. 2 officers searched the area. They checked the woods, the parking lot, the storage room, the roof. Everything. Nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing unusual. One of the officers actually laughed and told me I had probably been watching too many horror movies. I laughed too, but only because I wanted them to leave. I knew what I had seen. The rest of the shift passed without incident. When my manager arrived at 7 in the morning, I told him everything. Well, almost everything. I left out the voice, the footprints, the figure. I only mentioned the camera glitch. At first, he seemed annoyed. Then I showed him the recording. His expression changed immediately. He replayed the footage 3 times, then 4, then 5. He wasn't looking at the figure. He was looking at something else. Finally, he paused the video. "Where did you get this?" he asked. I told him it was from camera 4. He went pale. Actually pale. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. Camera 4 hasn't worked in 7 years. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. According to him, the parking lot camera had failed years ago. The wiring had been destroyed during a storm. The monitor slot remained active because replacing the system was expensive, but the camera itself no longer existed. It had been physically removed from the building. I remember staring at him, trying to understand. If the camera didn't exist, then what exactly had recorded that footage? My manager immediately shut down the conversation. He said there had to be a technical explanation. Then he changed the subject. Too quickly. Way too quickly. That's when I realized something. He knew more than he was telling me. Over the next few days, I started asking questions. Most employees avoided the topic. Some claimed they knew nothing. Others looked uncomfortable whenever I mentioned the old camera. Finally, one of the older workers agreed to talk. Her name was Linda. She had worked there for nearly 20 years. When I asked about camera 4, she became very quiet. Then she asked me a question. "Has it started talking to you yet?" The moment she said that, my heart nearly stopped. I asked what she meant. Linda looked toward the back room, then lowered her voice. "There was another employee." She told me his name was Michael, a night shift worker, just like me, 7 years earlier. According to her, Michael started reporting strange things, voices on the intercom, people appearing on the cameras, footsteps in empty aisles. At first, nobody believed him. Then the reports became more frequent, more detailed. Michael claimed something inside the store knew his name, knew things about his life, things nobody else could know. Eventually, management assumed he was having a mental breakdown. They suspended him. A week later, he disappeared. No goodbye, no resignation, nothing. His car was found abandoned several miles away. The police searched for months. They never found him. No body, no evidence, no explanation. Just gone. Linda finished the story and looked me directly in the eyes. Then she said, "The last thing Michael ever told me was that it wasn't trying to scare him." I asked what he meant. She swallowed hard, then answered, "He said it was trying to get him to follow it." That night, I seriously considered quitting. I should have. I know that now. But I didn't, because part of me wanted answers. Part of me needed to know what was happening. That decision nearly got me killed, because at exactly 2:13 a.m. the following night, the intercom came alive again. And for the first time, the voice told me where Michael was.